Greenville, South Carolina. It's the place we call home. It's the place where we raise our families, educate our children, and faithfully worship. We have become a multinational community. One only has to look down Main Street to see the faces, the food, and the culture of this diverse and growing economic cornerstone of South Carolina.
The Greenville area has a lot more diversity, and you have here people from so many other places that it makes accepting different people easier, because we have a lot of different people here. You know, you have the presence of many companies, international companies, that bring their employees here, and that creates this environment.
The people here have worked genuinely and continuously to improve cultural and human relations. Progress is often characterized as improving steadily, albeit slowly. Former Human Relations Commission board member Fant Stemple.
Greenville, race relation-wise, has probably matured in the last 20 or 30 years. I would hope so. Our economy is so much more diverse. Our culture is so much more diverse than it ever was before, going back to those times. We don't revolve around the textile system anymore. Our standard of living is much higher.
At least I think there's a discussion about it now. At least people in positions of authority recognize there's a need for inclusion. And if Greenville County is ever going to be all that Greenville County wants to be and can be, that everybody has to be at the table.
During the last 3 decades, Greenville has transformed from an economy based on textile mills to one that weaves engineering, services, and manufacturing into our financial fabric. While wages still lag many benchmarks, unemployment is typically the lowest in the state. Growth creates opportunity.
And I think what Greenville has experienced over the past 3 decades or more has been phenomenal growth, which has been wonderful for Greenville. And a lot of that has trickled down to the least of our citizens. But it's because of the work of agencies like the Human Relations Commission that the pulse of the community continues to focus on the least of our citizens.
So the economic opportunity in Greenville became greater the better we behaved. Okay. And that made a big difference. You know, I've always said the best social program is a good job. And if you want to do something worthwhile for society, you help to create a good economic environment, and you give people an opportunity to produce.
50 years ago, below the Mason-Dixon line, the picture is different. In Baltimore, Maryland, a drinking fountain for whites only. In Memphis, Tennessee, a hotel for colored only. In Durham, North Carolina, a business entrance only for white ladies, and a segregated waiting room at the bus station. Greenville is no exception.
They had the white and black water fountains, and how he slipped in the back door over there on Lawrence Street into a place, there's a store named Raylis, and they had both. And he said he slipped in and drank water just to see if it tasted different, you know?
The mid-century was clearly a time of racial segregation here. It wasn't until 1948 that African Americans could even vote in South Carolina. Greenville County Councilwoman Lottie Gibson was coming back home from school to work and eventually marry and raise a family here.
It was a very racist community. I was returning from college and I had the opportunity to work at the Department of Social Services, which was called the Welfare Department at that time. And of course, as the only Afro-American worker, I was not allowed to go to use the bathroom in the building where the department was held. I had to go next door to Bill Simpson's to use their bathroom in the basement.
It was in 1950 that a comprehensive study of the Negro community took place. Titled Everybody's Business, the survey examined 12 specific areas ranging from health to education to housing. More than 200 citizens, both whites and blacks, participated in the fact-finding mission with the intent of improving the quality of life in the minority community. News articles pointed to the creation of better recreation facilities, slum clearing projects, and new elementary schools to end double sessions for children. Despite several progress updates, integration was never mentioned.
I rode the back seat of the public transportation. I went to the back doors of the theaters, the movie theaters that were downtown. There were certain places that I couldn't go.
Strides toward racial integration in Greenville would not happen until the 1960s. Increasingly, there were signs of uneasiness, tensions heightened, yet the community remained calm.
We've always done things non-violently.
1960 also marked the beginning of the civil rights movement in Greenville. It was a time of change, protest, and social unrest. On New Year's Day, a massive march on the Greenville Municipal Airport to protest poor treatment of baseball great Jackie Robinson. At the Five and Dime stores in downtown Greenville, peaceful and orderly sit-ins at the lunch counter, while picketers out front decried segregation. That same year, a young activist by the name of Jesse Jackson would lead a group of 8 students to participate in a sit-in at the public library after they were denied use. That spring, the library closed rather than integrate, but within weeks it reopened to all citizens. In July of that year, violence erupted and City Council would impose a curfew for those under the age of 19. Sweeping changes were made in 1963 when the nationwide Civil Rights Act became law. The City Council voted voluntarily to dismantle segregation laws. A year later, Greenville County schools were ordered to desegregate. However, it wasn't until 1970 that a second federal court mandated Greenville County schools to begin integration. Equality was long overdue.
I mean, and there were just simple things, not like not having toilet paper. I mean, hello. And as I told you, the books were always used and damaged in many ways. And of course, even with those circumstances, as I look back down the road, I feel like that we would have overcome that.
Greenville had a matter of days to follow the court order. The school superintendent resigned. Political leaders and the Chamber of Commerce went to work. A suggestion was made to Mayor Cooper White to enlist the help of community ministers.
We went to schools. We went to meetings, just as many as we could go, as often as we could go. And we just told them, you know, the story and how it was, what was going to happen, and that we, you know, that we asked full cooperation in seeing that it was a peaceful integration.
There were pockets of violence. Historians and longtime residents remember the fights at several high schools. Police escorted hundreds of black students. The biracial committee went directly to the trouble spots.
We worked with the grassroots people and said, look, you know, the federal government, this is not a community thing. The federal government has said that this is what we must do. And we must do this in order, decent and in order. And we had a few people that wanted to cause some problems, but there's nowhere in this country that I've read that it went as smooth as it did here.
We had sensible leaders in the white community. We had sensible leaders in the black community. The Chamber of Commerce was helpful. Furman University was helpful. The school district was helpful. Everybody was. Everybody just said it's time we do something.
But that night, Walter Cronkite said, today Greenville, South Carolina integrated with grace and style.
Just months before the integration order, Cooper White was elected mayor of Greenville. Prior to his win, White was driving some out-of-town guests down McDaniel Avenue. He proudly showed them Cleveland Park. Yet just blocks away, the group pointed out homes of black families that didn't have indoor plumbing. He realized change was needed and sought minority support.
I felt there should be a human relations committee. I felt there should be cleanup campaigns in the black community. All of these different things, and no promises, but just what was right and fair.
Immediately following his election, White formed the Mayor's Human Relations Committee, the forerunner of today's Human Relations Commission.
So I appointed everyone that I thought was a thought leader. And so it part county and part city.
In 1972, the State General Assembly would create a 30-member Human Relations Commission. However, initially, the county would only provide for an executive director and one part-time staff member. The commission had little teeth as well.
We did not have enforcement powers. We had to use persuasion and consensus and trying to appeal to people's goodwill.
I look back to the early annual reports and the early information of the early days of the commission's beginning, and maybe they served 41 people for the year, and we serve at least 41 people in a week.
Throughout the 70s and early 80s, the Commission's attention turned to improving quality of life for African Americans. In 1986, Furman University followed up on Greenville's first comprehensive study on the community. It said the conclusions of this report can be stated succinctly. There have been dramatic improvements in the conditions of the black population since 1949, but equality with whites has not yet been achieved. While impressive gains have been made in every aspect of black community life, continued progress must be made to ensure real equality between the races in Greenville. The report lauded education, health care, and community participation. Fixing social problems did not get high marks. A year later, in 1987, Julia Adams was appointed as the Human Relations Commission coordinator. She set out to change the tone of the HRC by holding regular community forums, mediation at the commission level, and improving police relations.
This commission at that time was effective in being the voice of the community, in promoting positive human, community, and police relations. And prior to that, the efforts of the community in promoting effective dialogue did not come forth until there was an issue.
Reverend John Vaughn is the pastor emeritus of Faith Baptist Church in Taylors. He was chairman of the Human Relations Commission Board when its members hired Julia Adams. He sees her 13-year tenure as transitional years from those who lived through the early civil rights movement and those who heard about it from parents and grandparents.
Tensions between the people who were becoming the leaders of the community were based on history and the experience of others. And there was a freshness, a desire to get that into the past and to think about the future and to make friends and to realize that we're neighbors and this is our town and this is our county and this is our future.
No issue would grip the upstate more during this period than the struggle by the African American community to establish a Greenville County government holiday honoring slain civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. It was first proposed in 1986 by then County Councilman Ennis Fant.
The members of Greenville County Council who were adamant about not letting the holiday become reality were just being mean-spirited and just signs of hatred and bigotry, which we felt as though had no place in our community or anywhere in America.
17 years of frustrations later, the King effort reached a feverish pitch. In May of 2003, 30,000 people marched from downtown Greenville to County Council at County Square. By this time, Greenville native Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition got involved. The thought was to change the political structure of the mostly white and staunchly conservative County Council. In the fall of 2004, 3 council members were defeated, and the African American community had its votes to implement the holiday. Again, churches would play a role.
159 white ministers signed a petition supporting it. We got over 14,000 signatures asking the council people to vote for it. And then we came upon a little system that we could get a little help with. So the best thing to do is to get rid of these people that refuse to say that they'll vote for it. So we picked out the ones that we felt like we could win their seat.
One constant in Greenville is change. That is also apparent at the Human Relations Commission. Now, almost everything you need to learn or want to learn is available at your fingertips through the internet. There is also a much stronger focus on housing issues, particularly programs to put people in their first homes.
A lot of the issues that were important then have sort of taken a background now. But the key to a happy, healthy society turns out to be home ownership. It's one of the basics.
We try and build social capital. One of the greatest sources of wealth that any American can ever achieve is owning your own home.
A prime reason for the focus on housing is funding. Only 20% of the Human Relations Commission budget comes from the county. The greater majority comes from grants where the HRC competes and often wins, enabling the agency to grow its staff and help more people.
What I would like to see us do is to become more involved in community relations. We do that, but I would like to see us become more involved and be more proactive. I would like I would like to see us create a higher sense of awareness, public awareness of what we do, how we can help. That's a huge challenge.
Today's Human Relations Commission struggles to meet the growing community needs while dealing with shrinking federal dollars and the lack of available local funds. The HRC can name a number of accomplishments from increased staff size to counseling qualifications to programs that safeguard people from scams.
Are minorities targeted? You bet they are. There's a very conscientious effort on some lenders to try and solicit in minority neighborhoods, especially the older population, because they own their own homes, so they have equity in their home.
Meeting the needs of a growing Hispanic population is another challenge facing the Human Relations Commission. It's estimated that 150,000 Latinos now live in the upstate, and the numbers are growing exponentially. There are concerns that human relations could take a step backwards as immigration becomes a potential factor in the fight against discrimination.
Well, we have to find a better solution. We have to find what I call a pragmatic solution. It cannot be an emotional solution. But in the short term, we have to deal with all these negative emotions that are flowing.
Immigration is one of the future challenges, I think, and the future has arrived. The Commission has the capability to speak the language, so to speak, with Hispanics and Latinos in particular, and they are, that's an issue that we're confronting in the community, and the Human Relations Commission has adjusted to that, and they're right on the front lines with it.
Sometimes you have to look back at past mistakes to get a better sense of going forward in Greenville's attempts to further improve human relations. While all racial and ethnic groups share in the success over the years, all are responsible to take the next step.
It just seems that a lot of our black friends are looking for things to be wrong, and a lot of our white friends are trying to turn the other way to think there is nothing wrong. We just can't seem to get together to, as one entity, to see what our integration problems are today. But you ain't never going to have full integration until it's in men's hearts.
This community, I think that has reached a point where it is embracing diversity and being able to connect with the diverse community that we have here in Greenville.
I know you can't make a perfect world, but you can make a better world. And that's what I think the future of the Commission is is just making this a better place where everybody has an equal opportunity and everybody gets a fair shake, and that, you know, if we can help right a wrong and help someone in need, then I hope we have a long future here in Greenville. I
dedicated my life to justice, so to speak. I feel very strong about that. Do justice. And there's a saying in the Bible, Micah, all that is required of you is to walk humbly before God and do justice. It's very simple.
While no one has a crystal ball to predict human relations as the 21st century progresses in Greenville County, there is a clear consensus that proactive communications and open dialogue are keys to future successes. Past indications show that while Greenville has made progress achieving a level of social and civil rights, political and thought leaders acknowledge that parity among our melting pot of people remains elusive yet achievable. It will take time, government cooperation, and necessary funding to give future generations opportunities greater than previous ones.